Hi friends, I'm Dadi, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing my November wrap-up. In the month of November, I read 11 books, but this is an incredible accomplishment considering that I was going through a massive reading slump in November to the point that I read a month's worth of books in about a week and a half. I'll explain. So I finished one book at the beginning of November because I was listening to the audiobook and doing other stuff at the same time. And I started a whole bunch of books, but I didn't really finish any of them and like read the biggest chunks of them until basically the last week and a half of November, in which I got into a reading kick and I got into an audiobook kick more than anything. And I just blazed through most of these books. So yeah, I did basically a month's worth of reading in about a week and a half, which, I don't know, it's a thing I did and I'm very surprised that I did it, and it was a fun time and I read a lot of good stuff, but also I don't think I've ever read that much in just such a short amount of time. But we'll go through it all. So I'm just gonna stop rambling now and let's get started. The first book that I finished in November was Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I really liked this book. I rated it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was a super beautiful story of a Latinx boy who's trying to become a brujo, but he's trans, so his family won't let him like go through the ritual to become a brujo. And so this whole mess of ghost magic and beautiful friendships and relationships gets kickstarted, and it was a really awesome read. I say this a lot with Latinx books, but I will continue to say it. I loved the blend of Spanish and English. That is one of my favorite things to see in books, when it's done with intention and not just like a, hey, look at me, we're Latinx here. It's just like, it's normal. I'm bilingual. I speak every other sentence in English, and I speak half of my sentences in English, and the other half of the sentence I'll speak it in Spanish. So I love when characters in books do that, and when books incorporate both languages into their narrative super seamlessly. The characters in this were great. I kind of hated Julian, which is the love interest at the beginning of the story, but the more we got to know him, the better he got, and I liked him even more. And Jadriel was awesome. I loved him. He was just sweet baby that needs to be protected, honestly. It was just a great read all around. I started reading it on my own, reading my physical copy. I finished it up with the audiobook because I started cataloging my library on my computer, and so if I listened to it on audio, I could just do both things at the same time, which is very convenient and why I end up listening to audiobooks a lot of the time, just because like I like to multitask, or I like to pretend that I can multitask. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars, really awesome read. So I finished Cemetery Boys, and then I spent basically 2 weeks without touching a single book, and then I started a bunch of books. But obviously I'm gonna go through them as I finish them, not as I started them. Just so you know that there was like a huge time gap between me finishing Cemetery Boys and me finishing my next book, which was City of Lost Souls by Cassandra Clare. This was for our monthly Shadowhunters live show, which I will link up above. So this was a 3 out of 5 star read for me. This was definitely better than City of Fallen Angels because there was actual plot in this one and there was actual character progression in this one, as opposed to City of Fallen Angels, which was pretty plotless and all the characters got like reset back to their City of Bones personas, which I really hated. There was actual plot and progression in this, which I really enjoyed. I could have done with less of the Team Evil dynamics, or as I like to call them, the Incestuous Three. I really hated how much they were featured in this book and how much of them I got, and I just didn't need any of their dynamics. There were also some very yikes dynamics between Clary and Jace, especially when they were drugged in the Bone Chandelier Club. It was just a not good time all around. As for favorite characters in this one, definitely Magnus and Simon, because they had the most character growth and also were doing the best. They were both doing their best at any given time. Simon being the one that has to talk to the angel Raziel was a great moment, I think, for his character development and for the book as a whole, especially because Simon is a downworlder, and also foreshadows things that I know are coming in City of Heavenly Fire, which we will be reading for our January live show. Magnus continues to carry the series on his back. Honestly, he does everything. He does the most, all the magic, all the portaling, all the everything, all the knowledge. Magnus has it, and he deserves more praise for that. Bit of a spoiler warning at the end of this book. Magnus and Alec break up. Well, no. Magnus breaks up with Alec. And I thought that was completely justified because Alec was acting like a complete idiot the entire book. And the reasons why Magnus breaks up with Alec are completely justified. Magnus was the best character in this book, and I always want to see more of him. And I want him to be appreciated. Isabel was also really great in this, but she should have been given more room to grow and be the badass that she is, rather than being portrayed as a like overly emotional girl, which she has never been from the beginning of this series. So I don't understand why she was portrayed that way. And also, fuck Robert Lightwood, because he's a dick. It is explained in this why he's a dick, and he's a dick, so fuck him. Anyway, 3 out of 5 stars. It was a decent read, better than Fallen Angels. I don't know what I'm expecting for City of Heavenly Fire. I just know it's very long, and I don't know what to expect. So once I got through City of Lost Souls, that is when my month really picked up. I guess the feeling of accomplishment of having finished an actual book really like gave me fire. So I finished the next 9 books in very quick succession. Third book that I finished in November was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I listened to the audiobook even though I have the physical copies that my friend Julia lent me. I still listened to the audiobook because I was at work. And I mostly decided to listen to the series because I really just wanted something to listen to while I was at work, and because my friends love this series and I really wanted to read it for them and understand it. And also Julia had lent me the physical copies because she really wanted me to read it as well, so that is what I did. And I loved the series, and I binged it all in about 5 days, which is why you will see soon on my channel another accidental series binge about ACOTAR, because I have lots of thoughts and I want to discuss it. I won't talk about the ACOTAR series as a whole in this video too much because I'm making that accidental series binge video. Anyway, this was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. I really fucking enjoyed it. I really liked Farah as a main character. Tamlin can suck it, and this is the origin of why I am now a strictly Tamlin hate account. I hate him to the deepest part of my soul. I hate him, and I love Rhysand so much. But yeah, Pharaoh was great. Lucian, I didn't know what to make of him in the first book. I couldn't get heads or tails on him, but really enjoyed it. 4 out of 5 stars, excellent read. The 4th book that I finished in November was How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories by Holly Black. This was actually one of my anticipated releases in the second half of the year after I read the Folk of the Air trilogy. If you saw my accidental series binge for the Folk of the Air trilogy, you'll know that that was not my favorite series. I gave it a 3 all around, but I really liked Cardan's character, and I was excited to get stories from Cardan's perspective. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. It was an enjoyable read. It was super quick, but my one complaint was that I would have liked to see more main canon storylines from Cardan's perspective. Is one thing that I mentioned, for example, in my series binge video, was that I would have liked to see the time that Jude spent in the Undersea from Cardan's perspective, all the maneuvering that he had to do to get her back, how he was feeling about it. So yeah, I would have liked to see more like main series plot points from his perspective, but I still really enjoyed the book, which is why I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And I still really enjoyed the whole story thread that Holly Black weaved throughout, of like how Cardan's life has revolved around being told stories and eventually him becoming a storyteller himself. It was a good book, but you know, I was a little disappointed that I didn't get more main series plot points from his perspective, which I thought would have been really, really interesting. The 5th book that I finished in November was Othello by William Shakespeare. I read it for my Shakespeare class. This was the last play that we read for the semester, and it was fine. I really didn't jive with Othello as much as I did with some of the other works that we read throughout the semester. I think Othello really brought a lot of his own tragedy onto himself, especially because he was so unwilling to trust Desdemona, his wife. But I do have to say that Iago is a fantastic villain. The way that he manipulates just about everyone in the play is excellent. And he was all for the chaos. He didn't care about what happened to anybody. So yeah, no, Iago was an excellent villain. The 6th book that I finished in the month of November was A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. This was everything I didn't know I needed. This is where I truly fell in love with Rhys. Farah was excellent in this book as well. Tamlin, my hate was truly ignited and established when he, spoiler alert, locks her in the house. I legitimately lost my shit. I was raging. I hated everyone and everything. So yeah, no, Tamlin sucks. Rhys is great. Farah's awesome. And I really loved this book. I especially, like, Rhys is one of my favorite characters in this series. Everything that he does is with intention, and he never does anything to be specifically cruel. Everything he does is with strategy and to keep his people safe. And the fact that he was so willing to help Farah to learn to read, to get her own freedom, it was excellent. He was excellent in this book. The one criticism I have about him in this book is that he did hide the fact that they were mates from Farah for way too long. For most of the book, he shouldn't have done that. Other than that, excellent book. 5 out of 5. Loved it. Next book I finished was A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. I was on a roll. These are like almost 700 page books, and I listened to both of them in 2 days each. To the point that, like, I listened to all of these in such quick succession that I can't necessarily, like, pick out plot points from each book, because it's just like I read one long ass 1500 page book, because it's just all like one long book, because it doesn't blend in together in the sense that it blurs. It just blends in all together so well that it keeps the tone so well throughout the entire series that I just feel like I read one long ass book instead of reading 3 books. Anyway, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. This was the war book of the series. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. I'm not gonna talk, like I said, I'm not gonna talk about it a lot because I'm making the accidental series binge video. All I will say, Tamlin continues to be a piece of shit and he can fuck off and die. Next book I finished was A Court of Frost and Starlight. Listened to the audiobook very quickly. I listened to this in a day because it's like a 6-hour audiobook, and I listened to it on 2 speed, so it was like 4 hours. 3 hours, something like that. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. This was really cute in the sense that it was like a wintry, like, novella. It was just like in the winter spirit and like gift-giving spirit and all that stuff. It was really cute. It was nice to catch up with some of the characters and see like the setups for the next book, which is A Court of Silver Flames, I believe. So yeah, it was just a nice progression into the series and nice to catch up with the characters and see how they're doing after the events of A Court of Wings and Ruin. The 9th book that I finished in November was Solitaire by Alice Oseman. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I started this around the middle of the month, but it was one of the last books I finished. It took me a while to get through it. Not because I wasn't enjoying it, it was because I saw so much of myself on the page that it was kind of a struggle to read it sometimes. This is Alice Oseman's debut novel, and while it has its problems, I really enjoyed it. Tori is a very special main character. She is very severely depressed and is undiagnosed, and she is the narrator of this. It's done in first-person narration, and I saw a lot of myself in the page and in her story. I know what it's like to be in the throes of a really terrible, all-consuming depression, so that's why it took me so long sometimes to get through the chapters. It's just because like I saw so much of myself on the page, and her struggle to not be numb but also wanting to be numb and not wanting to be affected by things because she couldn't really feel them correctly. And it's just, I don't know if I can talk about this book very coherently because I saw so much of myself on the page. I related to Tori so much. I like how Alice Oseman doesn't shy away from difficult topics in her books. I read Radio Silence a few months ago, and she doesn't shy away from difficult topics there either. I really liked this book because I saw so much of myself on it. And now, as someone who has been going to therapy for a few years and is way better, I can only hope that Tori as a main character is able to grow and get better as well. Hopeful ending, really relatable. I don't know how to talk about this book. Okay, I'm gonna go bye. The next two books that I finished in November were these two novellas from Alice Oseman, Nick and Charlie, and This Winter. They're so cute. They were so cute. I gave both of them 5 stars. They're both illustrated in parts, but there's also a lot of text narration, which was great. And I'm gonna talk about them now. This one, Nick and Charlie. This one deals with Nick and Charlie's relationship towards the end of Nick graduating from high school and him going off to university and how that's gonna affect his and Charlie's relationship and how Charlie isn't dealing with it in the best way, which I thought was really well done because a lot of relationships don't do well under long distance. And the fact that the characters talk about it but also don't know how to communicate about it at the beginning, really well portrayed, especially since like they're teenagers still, so like nobody expects them to be masters of communication yet. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. The illustrations were excellent. The plot line, excellent. Loved it all around. This Winter. This takes place right before Solitaire. Like right before the events of Solitaire. Charlie had just gotten out of the hospital. He was dealing with an eating disorder and it's his first Christmas at home, and I can totally understand his trepidations about it because Christmas is never an easy holiday. There's a lot of family, a lot of activities that need to, and compromises that you need to fulfill, and there's a lot of food that is involved in it. And so I can completely understand why he was having a tough go at it, and his family weren't necessarily being great about it either. So I love the way that Oseman dealt with the characters, the storyline, everything. The illustrations were excellent as per usual. I really enjoyed this book as well. And so this was the book that I ended my month on. So yeah, those were the 11 books that I read in November. I did have a full November reading goals list. I even made a video about it, but as I said, I was going through a bit of a slump, so I ended up throwing that list out and just reading whatever I wanted to read, which is why I'm not even gonna go through the list with you because I just literally threw it out. The only things that were on the list that I ended up reading were Othello by William Shakespeare because it was part of my university work. The other university book that I had to read this month, I got about 100 pages in and then I just DNF'd it. I was like, I know enough of what I need to know to go to class, and I just DNF'd the entire, like the thing. I was just not here for it. Obviously, I read my live show book, which was City of Lost Souls. So I did that, I accomplished that, which was great. There were 12 books on my November reading goals list. 2 I got done because they were one was for university and the other one was for the live show. 1 I DNF'd, the other one that was for university. And then out of the rest of the books, the whole 9 books, I only read 2 that were on the list, and those were A Court of Thorns and Roses and How the King of Elfheim Learned to Hate Stories. Everything else threw out the window, didn't even touch, look at, anything. I threw my reading list out the window this month because I was just not having it. Anyway, all in all, even though this was kind of a chaotic reading month and I got most of my reading done in about a week and a half, I count it as a success. I read 11 books and that's still so much. So yeah, I count it as a very successful reading month. I read all of the Asgard series, which was not something I planned to do, but I did anyway. So yeah, it was a fun time all around. December has been a really good reading month. I am currently finishing a book and I am very much trying to get to 100 books by the end of the year. It looks like I'm gonna be able to accomplish it, so I'm very excited about that. Anyway, this is where I leave you. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you enjoyed that video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Come yell at me in the comments. And be sure to support your local indie bookstore. I've been Tati and I will see you on the next one. Okay, bye!